Greetings all! Today, we will be examining the legendary normal-type Pokemon Arceus, the Alpha Pokémon. Billed as the creator of all in the Pokemon world, Arceus is a potent deity whose immense might surpasses that of nearly all others and makes him more than worthy of the godlike status he has been revered with over the lifetime of our universe.
In the eyes of mortals, Arceus takes on the form of a white-skinned quadrupedal beast with four thin legs with gilded ends that taper along the length of its lower legs, as well as bands of muscle near its knees and along its upper thighs, with a grey ribbed underbelly and tail, and a long neck that leads up to an oblong head, with a long tapered tail-like back to its head, with the same grey ribbed material on its sides, further possessing a black ribbed face with pointed ears, a gilded mark on its forehead, green cheek markings, and red eyes with green sclera. In addition, the center of its body is adorned with a four-spoked gilded wheel of sorts, with a secondary arc of semi-connected wheels arcs, the point of the object extending past this, with a green jewel at the connecting points to the outer spires. The entire structure itself, along with Arceus' gilded body marks, changing color depending upon what type of plate or Z-crystal the entity is holding at a given moment. According to the legends of the Hisuian and Sinnoh regions, the creator of the universe, Arceus, was born from a great cosmic egg before the universe ever existed. Shortly after birth, it used the power of the unknown to create the universe as we know it, and in turn, it created Dialga and Palkia to rule over time and space together and, for reasons that still remain unclear to physicists, created Giratina as the living embodiment of a strange form of matter. After this, a single egg was made that contained the late trio of Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf to not only cover the essence of knowledge, emotion, and willpower to give existence of life as we know it, but even more specifically to help counter Dialga and Palkia if they were ever to go out of control, possessing the power to craft the likes of a red gem that has the power to make objects like the red chain to contain and control their rage and make them come to their senses in case they were ever put into a state of frenzy. In ancient times of the human occupation of the Hisui region, Arceus rained down 10 bolts of its light to transform Pokemon in the region, and taking up the challenge, a single man, the hero of Hisuian legend, gathered these 10 Pokemon and used them to challenge Arceus and his avatar, and in winning, brought prosperity to the people of the land, known today as the Celestica people. These humans were also known to be the builders of the Sinnoh ruins, who were granted audience with not just Dialga and Palkia but also Giratina, and they built great temple complexes and statues to honor not just them, but the noble Pokemon of the hero's team, and even Alpha Pokémon within the Korean Highlands and parts of the Crimson Mirelands. For a time, it seems that the people of the region were able to live in peace with the Pokemon of the region, but this would not last forever. As the statues of these Pokemon were built, it seemed to be in a vertical display of worship. By this, it is meant that the higher in elevation along Mount Coronet that the statues were built, the more they were revered with importance by the Celestica people, with the Temple of Sinnoh housing the statues of the 10 noble Pokemon at that time, and the pinnacle of it all reaching out to Arceus. However, a problem emerged here, as the statue of Giratina they built was built closer to Arceus than any other, the noble Pokemon being the only exception. This led people to worship Giratina as a being that was more powerful than the other members of the creation trio, and given that it too could energize other Pokemon with light from its own being like Arceus, the reverence is understandable. Sadly, perhaps fueled by the people that worshipped it with such reverence, Giratina saw itself as a being worthy of even greater reverence, and chose to rebel against Arceus in an attempt to usurp him as the greatest of beings in the universe. But the rebellion failed, even as Giratina managed to use his power to place many Pokemon in a dire state of frenzy out of anger. Its rebellion would lead to the creation of the Distortion World, where Giratina was forced into a state of exile. In fury, it lashed out, using its power to open rifts in space-time in order to send its power into the world once more, sending others into a state of frenzy that would lead it to effectively killing most of the Celestica people in retaliation. In the aftermath of this, what little of the Celestica people that were left chose to destroy any evidence of Giratina's existence, including the statue that had spurned the events of the disaster from the onset, and they were forced to live without the light of Arceus bathing them once more, a punishment for supporting or even instigating Giratina's rebellion. In time, people would come from the regions far from them, and would take the name of the Celestica people as their own, despite not being the true inheritors of that name, forming the Diamond and Pearl clans, and while they argued for a time over who was the true inheritor of the titles of the people of Sinnoh, the name given to Arceus in ancient times, it is known that they would eventually put their differences aside. Nonetheless, the true Celestica people were left to die slowly outside the glory they once shared with the Pokemon of the region, and today, the only true descendants of the Celestica people reside in the people of Celestic Town, and in particular, within the champion of the Sinnoh region, Cynthia, and her immediate bloodline. Although it is quite clear that human interactions with Arceus have been quite limited, it's equally clear that more than just the Celestica people recognize his power and its importance in the world, as it may have had some influence in non-Pokemon-oriented religions. Its form, mannerisms, and description in both Hisuian and Sinnoh legend sharing in common traits found in many Eastern polytheistic religions, including Egyptian, Hinduism, Shinto, Chinese mythology, and Buddhism. The true extent and reasoning behind these complex relationships, however, is buried so deeply in time that it remains beyond current understanding. Nonetheless, there have been a considerable number of temples built to honor Arceus across the planet, chief among them being the Temple of Sinnoh, now known as Spear Pillar, and the Sinnoh Ruins, which are located deep within the icy frontier that divides the Johto and Sinnoh regions from one another. It is believed that the latter in particular was once a lush forest land filled with a great variety of life, including humans, but became uninhabitable when the climate in the Hisuian region and beyond turned colder as it transformed into the Sinnoh region. Despite the damaging effects of snow and ice, the Sinnoh ruins have held up remarkably well, and are perhaps the most complex Arceus-associated ruins left in the world. When the ruins were first examined by archaeologists nearly a decade ago, a few oddly shaped flutes were discovered in a small stone box near the back of the temple ruins. According to the inscription written on the inside of the box, these odd objects, referred to as the Azure flutes by the discoverers, are able to summon Arceus with a tune that is imperceptible to the human ear, but, in terms of sound alone, is extremely odd and unrelated to any sound that can be heard on the planet even today, aside from being eerily similar to the radio noise generated by the unknown. Unfortunately, the sound generated by these objects is incapable of traveling very far, so it is unlikely that Arceus could even hear it unless it was literally within a few feet of the instrument, or the area surrounding the player had the needed acoustic and mystical attributes to amplify the sound to an audible level. Oddly enough, though, the main temple of the Sinnoh ruins also appears to be designed for the ritualistic purpose not only summoning Arceus, but enabling it to concentrate enough power to physically create time, space, or matter. At least, that's what the inscriptions within the temple say. What this truly means and what applications it could possibly have, however, are still a complete mystery.
What is definitely apparent, however, is that Arceus is incredibly powerful, primarily because of the sacred relics or life plates that the creature possesses.
From what little data is available on them, it appears that these 18 life plates serve as a defensive barrier for Arceus and allow it to change its type at will, which, perhaps not surprisingly, is why Arceus is the only Pokemon able to have the utterly unique multi-type ability, which causes his type to change to reflect whatever type of life plate it is currently holding. It is also interesting to note that these life plates serve as the prime evidence behind past interactions between humans and Arceus, as many inferior copies of the life plates, designed by humans and infused with the same energy found in the original plates, exist among ruins buried across the planet, with the exception of the Legend plate, which only Arceus possesses and can use, as it grants it the attributes of all types at once. While inferior, man-made plates still allow Arceus to change his type to match energy given off by a plate, and still have the effect of powering up moves associated with the type, but the original life plates are different in that they also grant Arceus immunity to that particular type, and can be switched out for each other quickly. These life plates, as well as their copies, are also the prime source of power behind Arceus' signature attack, Judgment. By gathering tremendous amounts of light energy into its body and releasing it all at once, Arceus can effectively generate a literal shower of light balls that strike opponents with enough force to disrupt their molecular structure and cause considerable damage. While not exceptionally strong on its own, Judgment is unique in that its type is dependent upon Arceus. So, as an example, if Arceus is currently a Dragon type, Judgment will also be a Dragon type attack. This effectively means that it will always be more powerful than normal because it matches Arceus' type and the plate item that Arceus is currently holding, making it perhaps one of the most versatile and potent moves known by any Pokemon. It has further been theorized that Arceus may have the ability to use specific Z crystals in much the same way to fuel his power, as the energy signatures they give off are nearly identical to the plates, though why this may be the case has yet to be determined. Regardless, these items all help to add to the immense power that Arceus wields in any battle situation, which is also reflected in its base stats, as it shows no weakness in any of its base stats in any of its type-based forms, its form changing color depending upon the type of plate or crystal item it is holding, and further possesses the highest base defense stat out of all normal-type Pokemon in its basic normal-type form, and the highest base stat total out of all recognized Pokemon in all of its forms outside of Eternamax Eternatus, truly rendering it a heart-stopping force of a god to ever have to go up against in a serious fight. While Arceus has remained elusive to the eyes of the world throughout most of recorded history, it has made one rather frightening and remarkable appearance in modern times, namely during the Machina Town incident 15 years ago. Thousands of years in the past, Machina Town was a barren wasteland that could not support life at all, and the people living there were in constant agony. Although it is unknown why Arceus chose to do so, it is said in legend that it once protected the world from being destroyed by taking the brunt of a meteorite swarm, losing the 17 light plates normally carried with it in the process. While Arceus normally would have died, a man from ancient Machina Town, known only as Deimos, rescued Arceus and nursed him back to full health. In return, Arceus used 5 of his life plates to create a powerful artifact known as the Jewel of Life, which would supposedly bring prosperity to whatever place it rested in. As such, Machina Town flourished for quite some time, but eventually Arceus returned to reclaim the Jewel of Life, only to be tricked by Deimos and sealed away. In the recent past, Arceus had begun to reawaken, sending disruptive shockwaves throughout the temporal and spatial realms as a consequence, which in turn led to Dialga accidentally entering the spatial realm, triggering the events of the Alamos Town incident and indirectly the events of the Zero incident. Eventually, Arceus did wake up and began to destroy everything around it with its powerful judgment attack. The three original deities, namely Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina, had already been feuding amongst themselves when this occurred and, with a little direction from a young woman gifted with the ability to communicate with such wild beasts, began attacking Arceus in an effort to save the world. Their efforts, however, proved to be useless. Even when the young woman, who happened to be the descendant of Deimos, attempted to give Arceus the Jewel of Life again, it was only infuriated further and forcefully crushed it beneath its foot, revealing that it was a fake. In a last-ditch effort, Dialga used his powers to send the young woman, along with a friend and a group of young kids, back into the past in order to reverse the events that had transpired. During the course of their journey, it was revealed to them that Deimos had not tricked Arceus intentionally, but had been brainwashed by a hypnosis technique from a Bronzong owned by ancient Machina Town's leader, a cruel man named Marcus. Through the efforts of the children, however, the attack from Marcus against Arceus was halted, and the Jewel of Life was reabsorbed into the beast before they all returned to the present. Due to Dialga fading in the meantime, however, the present had not actually changed even though the past had. It was only after a young boy amongst the group reminded Arceus of what had happened that it finally calmed down and departed for its home dimension, the Hall of Origin, as did the other three back to their respective dimensions.
Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. After years of work on Hubby's end and lots of trials and tribulations, we have reached God! Well, at least in an indirect sense. Seriously though, what much is there to say on Arceus that hasn't been said by Hubby already? Though we seem to know a lot about Arceus at the same time, we really don't know as much as we would like to. Its power is truly immense, there is no questioning there, but what role does it truly play in this world? Is it the true creator, the god of gods in this world that we all live in now? Or is it merely an extremely powerful being, possibly even supernatural, that seemingly has the power to create universes? Science really can't answer that, and I don't think religion can either, or at least not entirely. We have pieces here and there and evidence of the sort of power it can wield, but other than that, we really don't have much of a leg to stand on here. Even so, there is enough to say that the greatest of powers at play in our universe will likely be outside of full understanding and comprehension for a very, very long time, if at all, and maybe for their sake, that is for the best. We might not give humans credit for the kind of power we have over others, but we've already proven that deities of great power can be contained within devices that should have no chance against them. Thus is the world of Pokemon as it seems to be, so maybe we aren't far off from that day after all. Regardless, let us all still take stock in what we have and what is out there in the future. The longer we seek God, the closer we may reach it, and if Arceus does come back to show itself once more, it may either be to give itself up to the whims of human desire, or to raise us all to the ground and start anew.
Arceus is by far perhaps the most important Pokemon to ever be known. As well as barely ever made appearances to people in modern times, there is little doubt now as to whether it even exists. Whether it returns to the world as a savior or destroyer again in the future is uncertain, but at the very least it can more than be said that its incredible power will likely be the source of great fear and terror in the future.
As such, do yourself a favor and prepare for the worst if by some miracle you ever come face to face with this divine entity, or you may end up feeling the wrath of God's judgment in a blinding display of light that the unenlightened are unlikely to ever survive.
Thank you all for watching this video. It always brings me great joy to see others enjoying the work I do to try and make the world of Pokemon and the fascinating creatures that lay inside of it feel as real as they possibly can. If you really enjoy my work, please feel free to leave a comment and subscribe, as I always do my best to respond to any and all comments that are left on my videos. In addition, if you wish to learn more about my work and help support it, you can find links to my Patreon page, as well as email and other contact information to my work on DeviantArt in the video description down below. Furthermore, you can find a link to my Discord server there as well if you'd like to get a first glimpse at what videos are coming up next and converse with other fans of the world of Pokemon. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, and have a wonderful rest of your day.